November is the month where gratitude seems to be everywhere. Social media feeds are filled with memes and quotes about gratitude, saying things like, thankful, grateful, blessed. On backgrounds bright with the colors of pumpkins or autumn leaves or fresh-baked pies. Mass marketing emails contain headers like, what are you grateful for? And thankful for our loyal customers, asserting pressure to buy more things for the people in our lives to show them just how grateful we are. Ignoring the reality that it feels like the world has turned upside down, that more and more people are struggling to meet their basic needs like housing and food and affordable health care, that blatant lies out of Washington have become the norm and people are being rounded up in the streets. Amidst all of this, the idea that we should sit around saying thanks can feel a little bit hollow, especially for those among us who are struggling, those who've lost a loved one and are facing the holidays without their presence, those who are struggling to meet ends meet, who are isolated and alone, who are physically unwell, who do not have a safe place to live, whose immigration status makes them vulnerable to arrest or deportation, who are suffering from oppression, violence, or abuse. It can feel overwhelming and frustrating to be inundated with all of these messages telling us that we should be grateful. It reminds me a little bit of when you have very young children and well-meaning people love to tell you to savor every moment, that it will go by so quickly. Be grateful for the time that you have when they're little. And it's not untrue. It does go by quickly, and you do miss tiny bodies snuggled up asleep against you, their heads damp with sweat from where their skin pressed against yours. My kids are 10 and 13, and sometimes I miss them being small so much it feels like a physical ache. Just the other night, my 13-year-old came over to the couch where I was laying down reading, and she told me she loved me, and she kissed me goodnight. And I was struck by the fact that I only have 5 more years until she's technically an adult. And assuming that's the path that she chooses, moves out of our house and goes away to college. And all I could think was, 5 years, it isn't enough time. But when you are in the trenches of being a new parent or having an infant, being told to feel grateful when you are exhausted and covered with bodily fluids, yours and the baby's, and you can't go to the bathroom alone or take a shower alone, and your body is still healing and your brain is in a constant fugue state. The weaponization of gratitude just creates guilt and resentment. Recently, one of our members in Ithaca came in on a Sunday morning, her nose slightly swollen, her eyes red, looking a little bit dazed because her youngest had headbutted her so hard that morning that she thought her nose was broken. She had an announcement to give during the service, so she showed up anyway before going to the doctor's office. It turned out that her nose was not broken, but she did have a mild concussion. And as much as I know that she loves her children, I have to imagine that the last thing on her mind during that moment was gratitude, right? But I don't know, maybe she was feeling gratitude, grateful that at least her nose wasn't broken, at least it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And this tendency that we have to downplay our own suffering by comparing it to others, or worse yet, to have others tell us that we should be grateful because it could be worse, it causes separation instead of connection. Because it is in acknowledging our own suffering, not denying it, that gratitude can have its most powerful effect on us. Sarah Van Brathnack reminds us that gratitude holds us together even when we are falling apart. Ironically, gratitude's most powerful mysteries are often revealed when we are struggling in the midst of personal turmoil. When we stumble in the darkness, rage in anger, hurl faith across the room, abandon all hope. While we cry ourselves to sleep, gratitude waits patiently to console and reassure us there is a landscape larger than the one we can see. And this gratitude that holds us together, it's not the "it could have been worse" kind of gratitude. It's the kind of gratitude where we allow ourselves to be in a place where we can both hold the hardship and the wonder that is life. Where we give ourselves permission to grieve, to rage, to fall apart, and also to say, thank you. Reverend Janet Parsons wrote, "As difficult as it may be, we cannot wait until everything is going well to practice gratitude. We cannot wait until there is no war, no poverty, no injustice, and no terrorism. In other words, we cannot wait until all is well, and until we are content and safe and secure. In fact, gratitude can be an act of defiance, a conscious decision to accept what is taking place in our lives and in the world as they are, and to choose to say thank you anyway. And saying, yes, I know that this life is not all that I hoped, all I wanted, but I can find a way to see goodness in it anyway." How do we find a way to say thank you in the face of darkness? To say thank you in hospitals and stairways, in a world where the animals are dying and the forests are falling? How do we say thank you and mean it sincerely, and not just out of a place of guilt that there are others who are suffering more than we are? How do we find a way to be grateful for it all? There's an interview with Stephen Colbert from several years ago with Anderson Cooper, where Anderson Cooper asks him about a previous interview that was someone else, where Stephen Colbert had said, "What punishments are not gifts from God?" And Anderson Cooper asked him if he really believed that. And Stephen Colbert replied, "To exist is a gift, but existence is inseparable from suffering. We don't get to choose only the joy and discard the pain. Gratitude demands all of it. The heartbreak, the loss, the struggle, they don't just happen to us, they shape us. We try to escape suffering, yet it is through suffering that we become the most human we can be. It teaches us love, resilience, and the depth of our own existence. Maybe the question isn't why we suffer, but who we become because of it. We say thank you in the face of suffering because on some level we understand that it has the potential to transform us. That through the grief and the heartache, if we can find something to be grateful for, something to hold on to, some tiny bit of beauty in the world, then we can be changed. And are we, as you use, not a transformational people? It's one of the parts of this faith that gives me the most hope, that we are always striving to learn and to not just do better, but to be better. Rabbi Shifa Gold tells us, gratefulness is not a feeling, it's a practice. And this understanding of gratitude as a practice is important because science has shown us that gratitude is the most crucial thing that we can do to cultivate joy in our lives. And research backs this up. Brené Brown, who I'm sure most of you know, is a data-driven researcher, author, and professor, studied the relationship between joy and gratitude, and she found simply that there is no joy without gratitude. She shares that after 12 years of research and 11,000 pieces of data, I did not interview in all of that time a person who would describe themselves as joyful or describe themselves as having a joyous life that did not actively practice gratitude. And when I say practice, and this is the part that really changed my life, I don't mean the attitude of gratitude or feeling grateful. I mean actually practicing gratitude. What these folks shared in common was a tangible gratitude practice. She went on to say, the data supporting this finding was so persuasive that we started a daily gratitude practice in our home. We now go around the table every night before dinner and share one thing that we are grateful for. I started doing this with my kids after spending time over the last few weeks planning for this service and learning about gratitude and its connection to joy. We lay in bed at night after I read to them, and we each share what we're grateful for that day. And sometimes it's cats or stuffed animals or video games. And sometimes it's time spent together, friends and family. But it's intentional. And it's true. And it reminds us that even the ordinary is extraordinary, and that we can say thank you when things are easy and when things are hard. And I don't know if anyone could scientifically measure if the amount of joy in my house has increased in the last few weeks. But that's not really the point, is it? We're not measuring or tracking. We're finding gratitude and joy where we can, and we're naming it. We're practicing gratitude now so that when life is hard, when inevitably we are met with loss and grief, we already know how to express our appreciation for life's gifts, big and small. We are learning to cultivate joy. And we could all use more joy in our lives. So I invite you, as you leave this space and go out into coffee hour, think about sharing with one another something that you are grateful for this morning. Who knows? Maybe it will catch on and become a regular practice here, and it will help us to become an even more joyful community. Here, together, on this morning, may we all practice gratitude. Gratitude for community, for connection, for the presence of this congregation. And may we find joy. I'm going to invite you